The man disappeared into the darkness. Something slipped from his hand. It was a small note. In the chaos, he didn't notice, but Esther did. She grabbed it and ran as fast as she could. She didn't stop until she reached the safety of the crowded festival grounds. Only then did she dare to look at the message. Her hands trembled as she unfolded the paper. It read, "The Oba's daughter is alive." Esther was a 24-year-old journalist living alone in the city. She had lost her mother when she was still a child, and not long after, her only brother went missing. Since then, she had been on her own, struggling to survive. She recently got a job at one of the news stations in the city, but she was still new and trying to prove herself. Her small online news platform barely got any attention, and she knew she needed a big breakthrough, something that would shake the whole city and make people notice her work. But opportunities were rare. At the station, she was mostly ignored and never chosen to cover important stories or travel for assignments. Many colleagues saw her as just another intern with no real potential. One day, a rare chance came. The king of Ikene sent a request to the news station, inviting them to cover the grand festival happening the next day. A meeting was held to choose someone to go to the village for the shoot. But when the team gathered in the meeting room, no one wanted to go. They complained that it was just a village, and the story wouldn't be interesting. Some said there was nothing to gain from covering a village festival, and people in the city wouldn't care about it. Since everyone refused, Esther was the only one left, so she was appointed for the job. She couldn't say no even if she wanted to. She was happy. She didn't care if others thought it was boring. It was her hometown, and she was eager to return. This was her very first shoot, and she was not going to miss the opportunity. She was told to leave early the next morning so she could arrive before the festival started at night. The next day, without wasting time, Esther packed her bags and left the city for Ikene. She met the cameraman who would be working with her, and together they set off for the village. When they arrived in Ikene, the whole village was busy with preparations for the festival. Everywhere was lively. Traders were hawking food, while others were selling clothes and shoes. The streets were full of colors and the festive spirit could be felt in the air. The festival was going to happen on 2 different days, but they were only there to capture the first day. Esther and the cameraman went straight to the hotel where they had booked a room and settled in. After unpacking, Esther decided to step out and explore the village. It had been a long time since she last visited, and some places looked unfamiliar. Unlike her colleagues who thought the village would be dull, she found it beautiful. She enjoyed taking in the sights, the culture, and the energy of the people. She tried some of the local food and even bought a few clothes. As the evening approached, she made her way back to the hotel. In her room, she began practicing for a big moment. Her first time on the news, she rehearsed how to speak with confidence and picked what to wear. She also practiced how to smile and keep the audience engaged. Later that night, Esther got ready for the big event. She stepped out of her hotel, her heart beating with excitement. This was her moment, her first real assignment. Before heading to the festival grounds, she decided to visit the palace to greet the king. But when she arrived, she was told the king was unavailable. Instead, she met the royal advisor, who gave her instructions on what she needed to do for the coverage. The festival, known as the Night of the Spirits, was one of Ikene's oldest traditions, a grand celebration of the city's royal origin. Every year, the people gathered to honor their history with music, feasting, and traditional dances. But this year, something was different. The usual excitement was mixed with whispers of fear. The villagers were not just talking about the dancers or the festivities. Instead, they murmured about a strange masquerade that had been appearing in the village. No one knew who he was or where he came from, but his dance was nothing like the others. It was disturbing, almost like a warning. The people called him Epin, the leopard face. According to the older stories, Epin was no ordinary masquerade. He was said to be a spirit dancer with the face of a leopard, and he only appeared when the royal family was hiding an important truth. Esther began the shoot, introducing the festival to the news audience. She spoke with confidence, describing the rich culture and history behind the event. This was a moment, and she was doing her job well. As the festival went on, the king addressed his people, speaking proudly about their traditions. After his speech, music filled the air, and the villagers began to dance joyfully. The festival was filled with laughter, cheers, and the music beat of the drums. Esther stood at the edge of the crowd, carefully observing everything. Then, suddenly, a masked man appeared in the middle of the festival and started dancing. His movements were strange, different from the other dancers. His mask was carved with the face of a leopard, and his clothes shimmered with golden embroidery. The crowd fell silent and people whispered among themselves, some watching with curiosity, others with fear. The name Epin, the leopard face, spread through the gathering like wildfire. The tension in the air was thick. Esther, sensing that something unusual was happening, kept the cameras rolling. What was supposed to be ordinary festival coverage quickly turned into something much bigger. The mysterious masked dancer became the highlight of the night, and as Esther reported live, viewers became captivated. The news that had once seemed dull now had everyone talking, eager to know more about Epin, the leopard face. As Esther continued filming, she overheard a man say, "Epin's return means the royal family is hiding something." She quickly reported it, adding more mystery to the broadcast. People from Ikene who lived in the city understood what she meant, and the news started getting more views. In the middle of all this, her phone rang. It was her superior. "You are doing well. Keep it up," he said. A proud smile crossed her face. This was the big moment she had been waiting for. This made Esther even more determined to uncover the truth. When Epin finished dancing, the royal guards moved towards him, ready to arrest him. But before they could reach him, he suddenly turned and ran. As he fled through the crowd, Esther's sharp eyes caught something strange. A woman covering her face with a wrapper. She moved quickly and with purpose, slipping a small note into Epin's hand just before he disappeared into the crowd. Then suddenly, the woman vanished into the crowd. Esther's instincts kicked in. Something was happening and she had to find out. She pushed through the crowd, following the dancer and the guards chasing him. But instead of running behind them, she took a shortcut. Earlier, when she explored the village, she remembered following the paths. Soon, she spotted the masked dancer hiding nearby. Without thinking, she decided to help him escape. As the guards approached, she quickly acted, pretending to urinate by the bush. The guards stopped and apologized. Annoyed, she shouted, "Can't you see I'm doing something private? Leave this place." Embarrassed, they quickly walked away. Once they were gone, she grabbed the dancer by the collar of his robe. "Who are you?" she demanded. He struggled to break free, refusing to answer, but she was faster. With one quick move, she tore off his mask. When she saw the face behind it, Esther froze. The man standing before her was no stranger. It was someone she hadn't seen in 10 years. Her brother, Anthony. Esther's heart pounded. She could hardly believe her eyes. But Anthony didn't look surprised. Instead, he sighed and said in a low, urgent voice, "Esther, you shouldn't be here." His eyes kept shifting to the shadows as if expecting someone to appear. "You've been missing for 10 years," she whispered, with tears in her eyes. "What is going on?" Anthony was scared as he looked at her. "Esther, don't get involved in this. Go back to where you came from," he said firmly. "This is bigger than you, bigger than me. If you keep digging, you will uncover something that should stay buried. Go back to the city." Before she could respond, they both heard a gunshot and got scared. Anthony moved first. "Run!" he shouted. Before he disappeared into the darkness, something slipped from his hand. It was a small note. In the chaos, he didn't notice, but Esther did. She grabbed it and ran as fast as she could. She didn't stop until she reached the safety of the crowded festival grounds. Only then did she dare to look at the message. Her hands trembled as she unfolded the paper. It says, "The Oba's daughter is alive. Meet me at the Olokun shrine at midnight." Her mind raced with questions. The Oba's daughter? Alive? What did this mean? Lost in thought, she jumped in fear when a hand touched her from behind. She turned sharply, her heart still racing. It was the cameraman. "I have been looking for you," he said. Realizing it was just him, she let out a deep breath and apologized, forcing herself to stay calm. She quickly kept the note in her pocket and went back to work, continuing the festival coverage as if nothing had happened. After the festival, Esther returned to the hotel and sat on the bed, deep in thought. She didn't know much about the Oba's daughter, so she decided to look her up. Princess A, the Oba's daughter, died 20 years ago in a tragic accident, or at least, that was what the royal family claimed. That was what she found on the internet. But if she was truly dead, then why did the note say she was alive? There was more to this story, and Esther needed to find out the truth. The cameraman returned to the city, but Esther stayed behind. She informed her workplace that she needed time to uncover what the royal family was hiding. Esther left in the morning for the Olokun shrine, which stood deep in the forest outside the village. The path was dark and the place was far. After asking several villagers for directions, Esther finally found it. By the time she arrived, it was already night. She had spent the whole day looking for the place. Anthony was nowhere to be seen. Instead, a figure stepped out of the shadows. The woman with a wrapper from the festival. She removed the wrapper from her face and said, "I am Mama Nkechi." "What are you doing here?" she asked. Esther ignored her question. Instead, she took a step forward and asked, "Where is my brother?" Mama Nkechi asked who her brother was. When Esther mentioned Anthony, she immediately recognized the name. She told her that he had been taken. When Esther asked by whom, Mama Nkechi simply said, "The ones who don't want the truth to come out." She warned Esther to turn back before it was too late, but Esther refused. Seeing her determination, Mama Nkechi finally spoke. Princess A had not died. 20 years ago, she had refused to marry a powerful warrior. and in anger, he became an enemy of the palace. He tried several times to harm her and later sent someone to poison her food, but she survived because an antidote was found. Faced with a difficult choice, the Oba decided it was safer to let the world believe she was dead from the poison than to risk war. He kept her hidden, and after 10 years, the Oba died. Esther was shocked. If the king had been gone for 10 years, then who was sitting on the throne now? Mama Nkechi said bitterly, the man on the throne was not the real king, but a pretender. Before the Oba died, he had given the throne to his royal guard for a while, telling the village it was his son from another woman. But now that the real heir was ready to return, the royal guard would do anything to stop her. He wanted to keep the throne for himself. Before Esther could respond, she saw a car light coming from a distance. When it stopped, the palace guards stepped out. Esther became scared. How had they found them? Mama Nkechi quickly shoved something into Esther's hand. Run and never lose this. It was a pendant, a royal symbol. Give it to heir. Esther turned and ran as fast as she could. Some of the men chased after her, while others grabbed Mama Nkechi and dragged her away. When Esther finally reached her hotel, her room was a mess. Someone had broken in. Her laptop was gone, and her notes and documents were torn. It was clear the king already knew about her. She had to be smart. She had to stay safe. Esther left her hotel and found a smaller local hotel where she could stay without drawing attention. Not long after, she received a call from Anthony. His voice was weak, and he told her to meet him at an abandoned warehouse by 10 p.m. He said they needed to talk. The warehouse was on the outskirts of the village. Something felt wrong. Anthony had warned her to stay out of this and go back to the city. Yet now he wanted to meet. It didn't make sense. To be safe, she decided to go later than the agreed time. She took a cab but told the driver to wait in a hidden spot nearby. She would flash a light when she needed him. When she got to the warehouse, she avoided the main entrance and slipped in through the back. Inside, she spotted a group of men talking and laughing. In the middle of them, Anthony was tied up, bruised, and barely conscious. Thinking fast, she picked up a bottle and threw it in the opposite direction. The sound made the men pause. Then, one by one, they walked away to check what had made the noise. Esther rushed to Anthony and quickly untied him. He was weak, but there was no time to waste. Thinking fast, she reached for the fire alarm and set it on. The sound made the men confused as they were looking for where the fire was. "We don't have time," Anthony said in pain. A is ready to return tomorrow at the second day of the festival. Esther focused on getting him out first. She helped him to his feet and they slipped through the back door, disappearing into the bush. The cab driver was waiting where she had instructed, and as soon as they got in, he sped off. Meanwhile, inside the warehouse, the long guards quickly realized the fire alarm was fake. When they saw Anthony's chair empty, they knew he had escaped. Immediately, they began searching for him. In the moving car, Esther turned to Anthony, frowning. "Why are you helping her?" Anthony was quiet at first. Then he finally spoke. "Because I am her son." Esther froze. This was a truth she never saw coming. The royal family had hidden Anthony's existence for years. Esther's mother was a palace maid, and when the warrior came to ask for Princess A's hand in marriage, she refused. She was already in love with a commoner from the village, and had even given birth to his child. but the royal family did not approve and forbade her from being with him. At the time, the king and queen did not know that the warrior was a dangerous man. Furious at the rejection, he sent a maid inside the palace to poison Ei's food. She survived, but the king knew the warrior would not stop. To protect his daughter, he made a painful choice. He announced her death and sent her into hiding. Not long after, the palace guards caught the maid who had poisoned Ei. After severe beatings, she confessed that the warrior had sent her. She was later executed. Meanwhile, Anthony, who was just 2 years old at the time, was secretly given to Esther's mother to raise in safety. Years later, the kingdom was suffering from deep corruption, but Ei was ready to return. Esther turned to Anthony. "Do you know where she is?" Anthony nodded. 10 years ago, when everyone thought he was missing, he had been kidnapped by Mama Nkechi. She had taken him to a secret shrine deep within a cave, where his mother, Princess Ei, was hiding. Mama Nkechi then returned to the palace, continuing to work as a servant while secretly helping Ei plan her return. Anthony explained that was why they had needed to meet at the festival. That was how Esther had unknowingly gotten involved. Since then, he had been helping her mother, trying to find a way to reclaim what was rightfully hers. Disguising himself as Epin the leopard was his way of sending a message, letting the people know that the king was hiding something. Esther was in shock. Everything was happening so fast. As the cab moved, the driver suddenly slammed the brakes. A black car blocked the road ahead. Before they could react, another vehicle pulled up behind them. They were trapped. A man stepped out of the car, his presence commanding fear. It was Elisha, the former royal guard who had crowned himself king. He was laughing as he approached. "Where do you think you are going?" he said. "You think you can escape?" Anthony's voice was calm. "Laugh while you can, Elisha. When Ei returns tomorrow for the second festival, the truth will come out. The whole village will know." Elisha frowns and replies, "You think the people care about the truth? They believe I am their king. They follow me blindly. No one will ever know Ei is alive, because you won't be alive to tell them." He took a step forward. He had spent years building his power, silencing anyone who threatened him. He never got married, so he wouldn't have a weakness. So now, he would end everything here. Without hesitation, he reached into his coat, pulled out a gun, and aimed it at Anthony and Esther. Before he could fire, the cab driver acted fast. He moved the car and hit the black car in front away from the road, sending the guards to move away from his front. Elisha fell to the ground, trying to run away from being hit. Immediately, Anthony and Esther jumped into the car and the driver sped off. Lying on the ground, Elisha held his injured arm, and he was angry. He had underestimated them. But they wouldn't get far, he swore. They would pay for this. As the cab driver dropped them off at the small hotel, Esther thanked him and compensated him for the damage to his car. Inside, she cleaned Anthony's wounds, hoping that by tomorrow everything would finally be set right. She told him to rest. They needed their strength for what was coming. The next morning, they made their way to a secret shrine, hidden deep inside a cave. At the end of the narrow tunnel, there was a heavy wooden door. Anthony knocked in a unique pattern, a secret code. Moments later, the door creaked open. Inside, two maids stood by, and at the center of the room sat Ei in front of a mirror. She was older now, but her beauty and elegant presence were undeniable. Esther greeted her, and A looked at her with warmth and love. She embraced her son and Esther and also thanked her for all she had done. "Thank you for being there for Anthony," she said softly. "Your kindness will not be forgotten." It was a moment of reunion, of truth finally coming to light. Esther gave her the pendant that Mama Nkechi gave. It's a pendant that belongs to the heir. But there was no time to focus on emotions. They sat together and carefully planned their next move. Later that night, the village of Ikene was alive with celebration. The second festival was even grander than the first. Drums thundered through the streets, and masquerade dancers twirled, their colorful fabrics glowing under the fire lamp. It was a night of joy and tradition. All of a sudden, the music stopped, and the villagers began to murmur. A recording played on the speaker. The villagers listened. Elisha's voice echoed through the night, his words sealing his fate. The villagers, confused at first, listened carefully. He had called them fools, admitted to using them, and even confessed to his plan to kill Esther and Anthony. Esther had gotten the recording when Elisha stopped them in the middle of the road. Before the shock could settle, Princess A stepped forward and everyone was shocked. Many recognized her immediately. The lost princess, the rightful heir, while many recognized the royal pendant. Anthony and Esther stood by her side. Some of Elisha's guards moved toward A on the stage to stop everything. But before he could strike, some palace guards who still held loyalty to the royal bloodline stopped him. They knew the truth now, and they would not fight for fraud. A spoke with dignity, narrating the reason why she had been away. The betrayal that had stolen her throne and the greed that now consumed Elisha. She spoke of the warrior who had tried to take her by force, of her father's difficult choice, and of how Elisha didn't want to leave the throne and give it back to the rightful owner. She told them that it was only through the courage of her son and Esther that she was standing before them today. The villagers began to talk and murmurs turned to shouts and anger. The people who had once cheered for the king now saw him for what he was: a fraud, a thief. Elisha's men stormed the streets, weapons drawn, ready to silence the truth. But they were met with resistance. The masquerade dancers, symbol of Ikene's history, rose against them. The villagers, fueled by betrayal and anger, joined the fight. The past had returned to reclaim its place. A quickly raised her hand, telling everyone to calm down. She did not want bloodshed. The police arrived at that moment as Esther had called them, ordering Elisha's guards to drop their weapons. One by one, they surrendered and were arrested. The villagers stepped back, watching as justice unfolded before them. Then, Elisha came out in front of everyone, laughing. He looked around, unbothered by the fall of his empire. His eyes locked onto A, and he pulled out a gun. "You think you can take everything from me?" he said. "Now I will take what you cherish the most." Before anyone could stop him, the gun fired. The bullet struck Anthony in the chest and he fell to the ground. The whole village was in chaos, but the police wasted no time in arresting Elisha, dragging him away as he screamed in anger. His reign was over. Anthony lay still, blood soaking his clothes. He was breathing slowly, but his eyes held no fear. He had done what he came to do. The truth was out, and justice had been served. His mother held him closely, crying, and Esther was also crying, trying to assure him that he would be fine. Days later, history was made. For the first time, a woman sat on the throne of Ikene. Princess A had become Oba, the ruler she was always meant to be. The people had chosen truth over deception. In a quiet hospital room, Esther sat beside her brother's bed. His breathing was steady, but he was still recovering. She opened a laptop and she began to type. She wrote about a city blinded by lies, a family torn apart by power, and a truth hidden for too long. When she finished, she took a deep breath and sent it out to the world. Back at work, she was met with applause. Her bravery, her dedication, it had all paid off. She was no longer an intern. She had earned her place, not just as a journalist, but as someone who had changed history.